Hello and welcome to the Adventures Podcast. I'm your host, Dineo, and I'm thrilled to take you on a journey through the dynamic world of communications and advertising. Each episode, I'll explore captivating topics, chat with industry experts, and uncover the secrets behind successful campaigns. The ACA's mission through this podcast is to inform, educate, and entertain you. So whether you're a lifelong learner or just curious, join me for an exciting adventure. Alrighty, hello and welcome back to the Adventures Podcast. Another episode of our lovely podcast, and a great happy new year to everybody. I am, of course, your host, Dineo, and I am joined by a very special guest today, our very first guest of 2026. So I'm quite excited to get into it. Mr. Ahmed Tilly, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Dineo. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, so Ahmed, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, give us a background in your role and how you currently got into or the phase or career stage that you're at right now.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. So no, we don't have that much time. So I've been doing advertising for the longest time. I still love it as much as I did on the first day, maybe even more. And I still hate it more than ever before. And I think that's what fuels me, is to change the things I hate and to do more of the things that I love in the game. I started co-chairing. I was invited to co-chair with Effie at the Effie's 3 years ago. This will be my third year. And I'm really grateful and honored to do it. And I did it because I really focus, or I love the focus on effectiveness of the work that we do, because it sits centrally to my belief in terms of what creative people can do, which is to create work that ultimately builds value for brands. And if it doesn't do that, then it's not what I signed up for. So I'm really, really excited to be part of this journey with the rest of the team on the ACA and certainly specifically the Effies.
Great. Wow. That's incredible. Now, as a mini icebreaker, I like doing this in every interview to just gauge how good my intuition is and just what interesting activities or hobbies that my guests have. So, with that being said, are you familiar with the game Two Truths and One Lie?
Yeah, I am.
And are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get that out the way so we can do the fun stuff.
Okay. Great. Okay. So you have to give me two truths and one lie, and I'll have to figure out which one is which, and then we can unpack if I was correct or not.
Okay.
And along that, I get to learn something new about you as well.
Okay, let's do this. So let me give you three things. I have been doing this for 30 years this year. And when I say this, I mean advertising.
Okay.
2, I like eating alone. And 3, I'm 53 years old and I still play soccer competitively.
Okay. Sure. Those are difficult. Those are so difficult. Okay, so you said you'd be doing this for 30 years this year, advertising. Sure. Now I feel like I was supposed to do homework.
Fine if you did homework.
So let's see. I would say the first one is true. Fingers
That's
crossed.
30 years, yeah?
And the second one is most likely the lie, eating alone. I'm not sure if maybe you're an introvert, but I would hope that maybe you lie on the extrovert side, especially with the industry that you're in. And then the third one being playing soccer competitively. Yeah. Is it true? This one is difficult.
You tell me, did you say it was true or not true? I wasn't sure.
The third one is true.
Okay, yeah, you got it spot on.
Really?
I have been in the game for 30 years. I started in 1996 officially. I still play competitively. When I say competitively, I can't help but being competitive when I go onto the soccer field on Friday nights.
Yep.
And I like having someone for company to eat with. So you're right. That was the lie. Well done.
Yay! I can't believe I got it right. I felt like I was under a lot of pressure there for a minute. All right, now, as you said earlier on, getting it out of the way and into the fun stuff, right? So I hope you're ready for this. Our first question, right? So you mentioned that this would be your third year doing the whole Effie jury co-chair. And I mean, since the Effie South Africa launched in 2021, as co-chair for the last two cycles, how does it feel witnessing its rapid growth and record-breaking entries? And what shifts have you seen in the industry specifically that embrace effectiveness?
Okay, so there are quite a few legs to that question. The first one is the growth of the Effies, I think, is indicative of the sign. It's a sign of the times. I think marketers, agencies, brands, CEOs, and all of them, all business, I think see the importance of things that we do working. I think the marketing advertising industry has always been tolerated to some degree, not kind of been convinced that we actually contribute to the bottom line and to brand value, even though a lot of people know it. So I think the growth starts telling me about the importance placed on effectiveness and the effectiveness of great creativity. So it kind of indicates how important it is to business that advertising, communications, and marketing in general contributes to the value of business. And I think that's why we're seeing a growth in Effies. It's taken, I think, more seriously than it's ever been taken before. I'd like to make that conclusion from it. Yeah, I think for me that's the short answer for the question that you posed. I don't know if there's something you want me to elaborate on in your question.
No, I believe you've answered it spectacularly. So thank you very much. And I mean, with you having worked within Effie's for so long, I mean, what have your standout campaigns or moments from the 2025 Effie Awards been? And I think I'm double barreling this question, but what made the Grand Effie winner Save Our Stay for City Lodge hotels resonate so strongly?
So, I mean, I think in fairness to say, I've judged two. This year will be my third one, so it's not that long.
Mm.
But the 2 years that I have judged, I've been blessed in that the winners were really strong. Um, I think last year was the pineapple work, which everyone is a big and a huge fan of for many reasons. Last year, for me, what was standout about it, which is interesting, was that it was a winner that by and large used traditional media. And as you know, with the way things are at the moment, everything is gone digital, but it kind of emphasized the relevance of traditional media, and the role that traditional media can still play in creating effective campaigns. So I thought that was standout from last year. And this year, on the opposite end of it, it kind of the winner, the Save Our Stay from City Lodge, utilized a little bit of tech in it, which is on the other end of the scale of like sort of traditional media, and combined traditional media to be able to do it. I think the winners, and I include the goals this year, not just the Grand Effie, were all creatively very strong cases, and it was very pleasing to me, being a creative person, to see that the best performing campaigns also led with great creative, irrespective of the format of the show. And the correlation between the creativity and the effectiveness, for me, is evidenced in the work that has won over the last couple of years at the Effies. So I think and Save Our Stay, I think if I may speak specifically about it, it was beautiful in that the challenge was huge. We always start off by going like, how big is the challenge? And over a festive period, to be competing against huge players like Booking.com and Airbnb and the rest of the aggregators, for a chain to kind of compete against that and to fill rooms is an extremely difficult thing to do. And they did it. What I loved about it is identified that problem really beautifully, very simply, and then found real good insight, human insight, that spoke about that, and kind of it's kind of encapsulated in the title, the SOS, the Save Our Stay, this insight of feeling completely lost in the dark when you arrive at a place that you've booked and it doesn't live up to your expectation. What do you do in that moment? So I think it isolated a really true human insight and then proposed a beautiful solution that can solve that problem. And overall, what it did, both for that period of time and for the brand, used a really insightful thing and a great simple technology, not a revolutionary thing. It's just utilizing existing technology to solve a real problem, and in doing so, have a great halo effect on the brand, consumer. So I thought it would stand out in that capacity, and also the results were phenomenal against a very, very tough objective.
Sure. All right. Wow. No, that's brilliant. And I mean, leading up into the next question, reviewing hundreds of entries over 2 years, you spoke about the past two winners, right? The past two winners of the Grad Award for the Effie Awards. They stood out because they utilized traditional media with bits of digital marketing as well, right? And while we're reviewing, or while you've reviewed hundreds of entries over 2 years, what emerging trends have you noticed in the South African marketing space?
It's so interesting because I mean the obvious trends that we are currently all kind of inundated with, which is AI, hasn't quite come through over the 2 years that I've been judging it. I don't necessarily think that using traditional media is a trend by any means. I think the overarching trend is finding unconventional, not traditional, unconventional answers to a problem. And I think that's a great thing, because that's by definition what we do, not make ads, but try and find surprising solutions to problems. One of the gold winners this year was Sanlam's F Show, that utilized comedy, stand-up comedy, as a way to educate people about financial issues. And I think that's an unconventional way of approaching the same thing. I know for a fact from experience that financial institutions have to pump and do pump millions of rands over the years to educate consumers and South Africans about finances, right? And very little of that stuff gets through. And people have been struggling with this problem for a long time. I think last year's gold winner for Sanlam was an example of finding a different way of doing the same thing. So again, I think it's not a trend, but it's what really works. And I think people are picking up on this, is that whatever works must work. So if it is a comedy stand-up show, if it's utilizing digital technology, there was a silver winner this year that utilizes the calendar for KFC to do promotions. I think hopefully the freedom to go into paths that are not conventional to solve a problem is the right trend. And I hope that it becomes a trend, because I mean, it shouldn't be a trend. It's by definition what we do. I think that when things are tight, people, and certainly marketing departments and clients, tend to go back to the tried and tested, right? Because there's a less there's a lesser chance of losing. So they become risk averse and they kind of lean back on very traditional ways of doing things and pump money into that to get the desired result. So the more brands find unexpected ways to get to people, some more surprising ways to get to people to achieve those objectives, the better. I hope it becomes a trend. That's what the solution to all business problems, and dare I say, the solution to many problems in the world is actually finding unexpected ways of fixing those things. And that is creativity by definition.
Sure. No, brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant to hear. Now, as jury co-chair with Refilwe, what's been the most rewarding about leading the Effie judging process?
I mean, firstly, sitting alongside Refilwe is like amazing. She's got a very, very like brilliant brain in her head. So just sitting next to her and hearing her speak and her perspective on things is amazing. It's like a learning thing for me. My brain works differently to Refilwe's. I do also think that personally, I don't lead the FEs or certainly the panels. What I've learned very quickly is allow the panels to lead me in a sense. So what I quickly realized is when I sat on the first panel, not last year, the year before, there's a chopper flying overhead now. Sorry, it's going to be noisy. I don't know, can you hear it?
Can't hear it at all.
I'll keep going. So the year before, the minute I got into a group with the panel, I quickly realized how smart this diverse bunch of people were and how many different skill sets each one of them brought and experiences within certain categories and industries, and certainly from a capability point of view. And it was, that's the very thing that you don't want to lead. What you wanted to do is flourish. And so allowing people to express and inviting them to express their opinions on the work for me was amazing. So it was light work because actually the job that Gillian and Refilwe and the rest of the team did in putting the panels together, I think was the amazing part. I think that's where the genius lies, that you get such highly skilled people into a room that the room itself becomes the expert and no one person is. I don't think, and my role became encouraging everyone in the room to be heard. And every time I invited somebody to give their point of view, we all learned something. So for me, that's been the best part of sitting in a leadership position on Effies, is allowing the right people to speak their minds, because a lot of value came through when they were given a platform to share their opinions.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes it a tad bit more special the way that you bring it about. So with that being said, what are some of the tough decisions that you and the jury had to wrestle with in 2025? This goes around from entry quality, from measuring impact, or determining what qualifies as exceptional.
So interestingly, what qualifies as exceptional was less an issue. I think on the plus side, the gold winners were so strong that it was not easy to pick the grand in that sense, because each of them had such merit for them standing on their own 2 feet, so to speak. So that was a struggle, in the sense, a good struggle, because you had good contenders. It wasn't one clear winner and the rest of them were silvers. They felt if you get a gold at an Effie, it is a really, really great thing to get, because so few get given. But also, goals are not questionable. They're undeniable. And so when you got 4 undeniable winners to pick one, you can imagine that's the wrestle. I think on the downside, one of the wrestles that I personally found was badly put together entries. Because sometimes you'll see that there's something really amazing in terms of its results, but you've got to go through in detail and with a fine-tooth comb. That's kind of by definition what Effies is compared to any other award show. Through all the volume of it, And there's something in there that tells you this should be a winner. This should be taken more seriously, but the entries are not put together properly. And what that does is there's a personal struggle of having to make sure you go through everything from beginning to end, but knowing that they haven't compiled that thing properly. So there's a bit of a frustration in it to go, like, you've got so many entries to go through. And it felt to me like the bad entries weren't given the care they deserve. Like for me,
Sure.
sounds maybe a little personal, but like, if you're bothering to put an entry into the Effies and you're going through the effort of putting all this volume together and this thinking together to highlight a certain case, and you haven't done that properly, then, like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I think that's a little disingenuous in why you're entering in the first place. So that was a bit of a frustration. And another positive frustration was that we had a lot more entries this year. So that's a good problem to have, in the sense that, and so the panel also had to become bigger. And, we managed that frustration, but that's a good thing. But I think when you've got many worthy winners, it's hard really to kind of, a lot of debate. There's a lot of discussion and debate about making one winner. And then bad entries, I think, is a frustration, just as a sound nugget.
Now, touching on the badly written entries, I think, if I can think about it, or ask you rather, what practical advice would you give agencies and marketers based on what you've seen succeed and fail in the recent cycles that you've been Effie co-jury chair?
Well, I mean, I think it's like anything in life. It's like, keep it simple but keep it clear. And supporting evidence is very important. So what you need to understand is that when you make an entry like this, and like I said to you, the panels are super smart and they're so varied in their skills that you can have someone really good on the financial aspect of it, and someone on the marketing aspect of it, and someone on the creative aspect, someone on the strategic aspect, and with wealth of knowledge and experience, right? So you've got to make sure that your entry is really well put together in terms of a simple line of logic, in terms of an identification of the obstacle or the problem or the objective. Make sure that's really simple. And then the supporting evidence. We do look at these cases and go, like, by process of elimination, you've got to start taking out what was something else that was done at that period of time. Were there any other promotions that were happening at the same time? You've got to provide those mitigating factors. You've got to provide the evidence and keep it simple and clear. So often when something gets a little convoluted, it's not volume. It feels like you're screening, you're hiding some smoke screening thing. So, if you've got a clear case of a winner, right, you're not hiding, you actually illuminate. You know what I mean? And you don't confuse. Mm-hmm. So you got to, again, the best advice I can give you is draw a simple line from the objective and go all the way down to the results, and keep that line very simple. If you've got too many objectives, you've got to have too many evidences for all the solutions and the results. So just keep it really simple. It shouldn't be a difficult thing to explain. The volume should come in the evidence that proves that whatever statement you're making, holds true. Not in the line of logic. The line of logic should be very simple and clear. So in terms of the entries, there are some of the bigger agencies that tend to do this better, and you can see it. You can see how that sort of very simple line of logic is carried throughout the entire entry and the entire case. And maybe as advice, look at the winning case studies over the last 3 or 5 years, and you'll see the pattern, see how it's done. But simplification and evidence is critical. And I think that sometimes both of those are absent in a lot of the case studies.
Sure. No, definitely. I think the key word I've gained from it is simplicity is the best way to go with it. Now, so now hopping into our next question, how have entries evolved in quality, creativity, and approach since the first Effie Awards in South Africa? If you could touch on that a bit.
Yeah, it's tough because I can't really reflect with detail from the beginning when you said. I think I'd like to believe that the influence of creativity has grown. I'd like to also believe that my influence, for as little or as much as it could be, on the Effies over the last 2 years is emphasizing the importance of creativity. I don't think my being present has influenced the trend of better creative work. I think it's happened before my time. But I do think that the winners are creatively sound entries, right? So I think the evolution has gone from, prior to Effies, and I know we shouldn't be talking about it, but in terms of effectiveness awards, it used to be perceived, and so was Effie's, perceived to be work that had great results, and that was enough. Originality, creativity, strategic influence mattered maybe a little less than just like something that had a really great result. And I think the trend, the evolution of it is the relationship between strategy, creative, and result. And I think you find more evenly weighted winner or winners using those three components. And so I like to think that creatively, the Effie Award winners are strong creative winners as well. And I think they hold their own in any creative way. So the evolution has come out of something that was, just a result, an amazing result, that was so heavily skewed just on the result, to now where the criteria takes into account the other three factors equally as well, as importantly. And so you're seeing more well-rounded winners that are just as effective, but have a strong creative component, a strong strategic component, and a strong research and data component to it that kind of unearths the insight. So I think the evolution is a more well-rounded bunch of winners than they have been historically, perhaps.
No, great. Amazing. Now, to touch on some of your personal learnings throughout this journey and throughout this process, after co-chairing 2 years, what have you personally learned from the judging processes, and how has it maybe impacted your career as well?
I've learned a lot with the judging process. I think I touched on this earlier. I've learned that to lean on the panel a lot more. I've also learned to be more quiet. I've learned to allow my brain to change its mind, because the room. So creatively, yes, it's strategic. It's not devoid of strategy, but largely very instinctive. You'll see a piece of work that make you feel a certain way, and everything kind of tallies up in your head, and you go, that's a great piece. When it came to Effies, I've learned that I've had to change my mind after discovering other things that people on the panel had informed me about a category or, a certain type of work or historic winner or or the functionality of how the money works behind the scenes. And so I've learned to listen, to learn, and to feel freer to change my mind with something. As the chair people, luckily we don't vote on the winners ourselves, so we have no influence in that, but that has been a personal lesson for me. The other lesson has been that they are still, I think, I've learned that there's still very few clients who are brave enough to do great creative work. And the lesson is, do brands really believe in the power of creativity? Because if they did, they would push themselves further creatively to be able to see the results. And I don't think they do. I think they still work from a place of fear. And so that's why I love celebrating the winners, because I understand what great strides they made in terms of going to brave spaces, save our souls. To be able to do a campaign like that, invest very little money, so it was a low financial risk, but to be able to put that kind of work out there and that kind of interception at the point of dissatisfaction from a consumer is a brave piece of work. Night School, VW was one of the other winners, which I also think is a brave thing to do, and then follow through in terms of getting it into curriculum and pushing it around the country in terms of scale. So, I think that the brave clients are getting rewarded. And they're getting rewarded not just at awards, but as this particular award shows, they're getting rewarded on the bottom line. And so, yeah, lesson learned from it. There's still a lot of work to do to convince clients to emulate the most successful clients, which sounds pretty obvious, but for some reason hasn't changed. That the braver avenues, the more creatively strong work is delivering great effectiveness and results. So why aren't you trying to be more unconventional in your approach?
Sure. Wow, no, that's brilliant. Catching a lot of gems during this interview. Now, according to you, maybe, how are the Effie Awards influencing marketing practices and just raising industry standards in South Africa?
I think I touched on it. In the previous question, but I
Yeah.
do think that there's always been a more of a kind of respect, if you want to call it that. And I've sat and I still do on creative award panels, right? And the two are not in opposition, but I think historically they've been perceived to be in opposition. So I do think the clients are taking this award far more seriously, as are agencies. I've got to put that down, because agencies also understand that winning an Effie award gives them the credentials they need for their case for creativity, right? Otherwise, it's just a gold winner somewhere in the world and a statue that, is just shiny and doesn't have any sort of impact on business. And I come back to this thing that I, believe so fervently in, is that our purpose and our reason for being as communications creative people is to sell product, is to sell brand, is to sell perception. We're not in the art of art purely. We're in that space between art and science. And to be taken seriously, we need to kind of remember what we're doing. Because to show how clever you are in an award show is easier than using your cleverness to deliver results. And so I think that marketers are seeing this. I think that agencies are seeing it more. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons we're seeing more entries into the Effie's awards. Because I think that there's a joint understanding of how important effectiveness is, and a joint sort of championing of creativity delivering results. Whereas historically, we depended on a creative award show on one hand, and then, maybe won effectiveness awards. But the world right now, with money being as tight as it is, budgets being as tight as they are, getting cut, effectiveness is the thing. And here's the interesting thing. If you look at, I said, Save Our Souls, or Stay, that one, Night School to some degree, and Sanlam, but particularly City Lodge. When you with a small budget, that's what our role is. Our role is to be able to take a budget and create such impact with that budget that it compounds the interest on it. That's what creativity does. Because I can let everybody know what my business is by pumping millions and millions of rands into it. But what creativity does, and high impact creativity does, is that it can half your budget, your media budget. You can literally use a high impact idea to deliver massive results because it's contagious. People talk about it. People want to remember it. It lingers longer. So that for me is critically what we do. What we do is actually, ironically, a financial function. But we've had a problem as creative people. We've had a problem convincing the market, the world, that our function is the financial one. And I've always had to explain this to clients and in my past, and I don't think they believe me, but really, I believe that if a great creative piece of work happens, it's the most cost-effective way to get a result. And I'm not talking about necessarily spending less. I'm talking about how much further your piece of communication goes. If it's anything, you've just got to pump twice, 3, 4, 10 times more money to get the same message out. And I think once people and clients understand, I think they're understanding it. And agencies certainly do, and I hope the better ones do, that's the heart of what we do. That's effectiveness. And effectiveness without a great creative idea is ineffective, because it is great creativity that creates the effectiveness. And so it's interesting that we talk about effectiveness and creativity as separate, whereas at Effie's now we've shown the balance in the criteria and the score of how effectiveness and creativity, they share a similar sort of weight in its delivery.
Sure. Wow, no. Absolutely brilliant. Now, we're about to wrap up the whole interview. But if I could ask you one more question, is looking ahead, which is probably something you've already touched on as well throughout the conversation and interview that we've had. Looking ahead, what excites you most about Effie Awards South Africa's future?
I think an award like Effie's award is going to thrive because the world just has more problems than it's ever had. And financially and business, the challenges keep piling up. And the only way to solve that is through unconventional thinking, which is creativity. So I think we're in for a bumper decade with Effie's, because that's in essence what Effie's is. It's at the heart of it. I'm excited about the winners in the future. Like I just knowing what the winners were last year, I can't wait to know, the new winners, because there's so many lessons in that and so much inspiration in that it's just going to create more winners. So I'm excited about the growth of Effie's. And again, my personal hat of being a creative guy is seeing the evolution and the future of the Effie's becoming equally effective as it is creative. I think that we are off to that. It's always been there, but I think we're going to see a rush of entries coming over the next 5 years that are going to shine both creatively and effectively. And for me, like I said to you, at the heart of what we do, that's what it is. So we're going to have more evidence of the need for great creativity coming through in effectiveness. We're going to have all the proof. I think it's going to inspire more clients to be braver. And I think because clients need to see the evidence that it worked. And Effie's is the only award show I know that combines both of those. So I'm excited about the next 10 years of Effie's. Over and above the winners, the panels, the future chair people that are going to come in, I think that Effie's is in for a really good ride in the next 5 or 10 years. And, business needs us to thrive. And I think we will.
Sure. Wow, no, that is absolutely brilliant. And I think a lot of listeners are going to be inspired by this whole conversation. So I'd just like to thank you, Ahmed, for making the time and joining me today to really talk through this. And yeah, man, I'm even, I've learned a lot as well from my side. So thank you so much, Ahmed.
Thank you, Dineo. I appreciate the opportunity to talk, and all the best in your future at the ACA and on Effie's.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Ad Ventures podcast. I hope you enjoyed our journey through the world of communications and advertising. If you found this episode informative and entertaining, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners just like you. Don't forget to follow us on social media at ACA South Africa and visit our website www.acasa.co.za for updates and behind-the-scenes content. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the fascinating world of communications and advertising.